Hello, this is Jesús Manuel Mena Garza. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, but I was born and raised in San Jose, California. I also lived in San Francisco, and I also lived in Austin, Texas for 7 years, and then I lived in Southern California for another 7 years, and now I'm back in Texas. Yes, my parents are from South Texas originally. They're from a small town called Crystal City, Texas. There are quite a few Garzas in South Texas and also in northern Mexico. If you looked around in any community and say, are there any Garzas here? No, half the community will raise their hand and say, yes, we are Garzas. So again, my family, my father's side has been down there since the 1700s. And he's a white man. I didn't know he was a white man until some of my schoolmates in high school came over and said, hey, your dad's white. I thought he was just a Mexican. I don't know, all Mexicans look like him. But he's essentially a white man. He's a Spaniard. So he's very light complected and burns when he's out in the sun too much. And my mother's pretty much a mestiza. Mestizo meaning mestizaje, mezcla. Basically, she's a combination of a lot of cultures. She's Spanish, she's African, she's indigenous, indigenous Mexican Indian, and so she's a combination of quite a bit, and I got a lot of her features, and some of my family are very light, others are very dark. My family's history is again rooted in Texas, but I want to tell you a couple stories of my family, and specifically my mom. She once went to a theater in South Texas. This is in the 20s when she was a child, and she went with my father's sister, Virginia. They went to the theater down there. Virginia, again, who's very light complected, got into theater all the time, just walked in like nobody's business, and sat in the bottom floor with the rest of the white folks, okay? But this time she brought my mom. Not a good idea. My mom, the minute that she saw that she was with my mom, she said, hey, you're gonna have to go upstairs with the Indians, the black people, the brown people, the Mexican people. You're gonna go up there from now on. So that's her experience in, my mother's experience in South Texas. My father's was a little bit better. He wasn't persecuted as much. There's two kinds of Mexicans in Texas vernacular. There's, the Mexican, but then there's a dirty Mexican. Dirty Mexican means that you have a lot of indigenous blood, African blood, basically you're brown. So that makes you dirty. So that's where that term came from. So my parents left in the 40s, like a lot of white, black, brown, other peoples, to California during the Diaspora. They call it the Texas Diaspora, the Texas Diaspora. They went there to get work, essentially full-time work, and they worked in the various docks and the military areas and the fields and stuff like that. So my parents got full-time work as farm laborers and also working in the canneries. So that's what they did. And they stayed because they liked it. They liked the weather. They liked the fact they can work full-time and didn't have to migrate from Crystal City to Kansas, to Minnesota, to Montana, Michigan, etc., etc. They no longer had to trek to find work. They could stay in one place, which is very good for them. And eventually in the 40s they bought a house, and then they sold that one, and they got another house in the later 40s, and it cost them $6,000. They paid $60 a month. That's a pretty good deal, huh? At the same time in Texas, houses were relatively close to that, $5,000-6,000 a pop for a working class, middle class neighborhood. A nice neighborhood in San Jose. So it was very quiet when I grew up. It was very quiet. Across the street were some Germans. Next to me were some people of Portuguese extraction, and an Italian, family next door, and several Germans. And behind me were some African Americans. And the church down the street was called Holy Cross Italian Catholic Church. And the church a few blocks down that way was the Five Wounds Portuguese Catholic Church. So we had a very diverse neighborhood. We weren't segregated. So I had a certain multicultural upbringing. I went to school with, and just down a few blocks was Japantown. So I grew up with a lot of Japanese people, and I learned a lot about their culture, their food, and it was a great experience growing up in San Jose. I remember in 1969 coming back to visit family in Texas. We all jumped in a car with some other family members and went to Texas. We drove to Texas from California, and I remember seeing a sign, and it said, and this is in Texas, in 1969 by the way, no dogs or Mexicans allowed. My family went in there anyway, said, screw you, we're a good sized group, we can get away with walking in there, whoever's going to start a scuffle, we've been in fights before, so no problem. So that's my experience with racism was mostly in Texas, and my family's experience with racism is mostly in Texas. Yes, there's racism all across the country, but in Texas, a southern state, it was a little bit higher level. So why is my parents' house today worth $800,000 and a similar home in Fort Worth only worth $200,000? There's only one answer for that. It's because of high tech. In Santa Clara County, we have a lot of high-tech jobs. And why do we have all these high-tech jobs? Because we have high-tech entrepreneurs, we have engineers, we have creative minds that have congregated, made Silicon Valley their home. And why did they make it their home? Because we have two of the finest universities in the nation, if not the world, within 50 miles of San Jose. You know, in Santa Clara County, in which San Jose is the capital. Down the road, you can take the bus and go to Stanford University, probably one of the premier private universities in the world. People go there from around the world to gain experience in technology. They specialize in technology, medicine, and other areas of expertise. And just down the road 50 miles, if you drive down the other side of the bay, you end up at UC Berkeley. And I'm not saying this because I'm just making this up, but according to all the different reports and analysis, University of California at Berkeley is the #1 public university in the whole United States. So we have two schools. People from around the world coming there. Okay, they're coming around from all over the world, from Asia, from India, from Africa, from Europe, from Latin America, from all over the United States. The creme de la creme are coming there to learn engineering. And they set up business in Silicon Valley, in Santa Clara County, because the entrepreneurial nature of the community. There's a lot of people that are willing to, hey, you have an idea? We can make some money off this idea. They may invest in 7 or 8 of them, but one of them is going to take off and they're going to get rich. So a lot of people invest in all these high-tech ventures. And they stay in Silicon Valley. That's why you have Apple there. That's why you have Intel there. That's why you have Google there. That's why you have eBay there. The list goes on and on and on. Adobe, my favorite software. Adobe's right there in downtown San Jose. So that is why people live there, because that's where the jobs are. That's where the creators are. That's where the money's at. So these engineers, some of these engineers are getting paid pretty good. So they can afford to live and pay $800,000, $2 million for a house. If I was a clerk at Walmart, I cannot afford to live there. It's very difficult to live in Silicon Valley if you're just a working stiff. My parents today, if they moved down there, would have a very hard time. Back in the 40s, it was easy, but things have changed. So there's another real estate term I like to use: location, location, location. Every real estate agent you can talk to one in San Diego, New York, you can talk to one in Austin, in Dallas, in Kansas City, you can talk to one in Minneapolis. They'll always say, location, location, location. That neighborhood's more expensive, but that one's cheaper. That one next to the railroad tracks and the meat packing plant, that smell, oh my God, it's horrible. It's inexpensive, but that one by the beach with a nice view on a hill with the great weather, that's gonna go for a little bit more, a little bit, just a little bit, okay? So location, location, location. So Silicon Valley has jobs and location. It has great, great weather. Okay, let's say for example it's summertime here in Texas. It's 110 degrees. I want to go for a bike ride. I want to go for a walk. Man, it's going to be too hot. Seriously, it's going to be too hot. I can go out for a little bit, but I can't go for a long time. In the meantime, you're in San Francisco, San Jose, Long Beach, or, you know, Napa, Mill Valley. You want to go for a hike? Yeah, go for a hike. It's very pleasant. It's wonderful. You can walk along a stream, you know, go up a little mountain. You can go to the beach, have a little campfire, you know, just relax. Here, it's sizzling hot. People are going to go in the water, they're going to go swimming. A lot of people here, all my neighbors have swimming pools, so it's because it's hot here. It's super hot. And 3, 4, 5 months out of the year, I can't even go in my backyard because there's so many mosquitoes. I don't leave out water for the mosquitoes to breed, but other people do, and I live across from a lake. So we get tons of mosquitoes. I want to relax. It's a beautiful day. It's at least 80 degrees, and I'm getting a little cool breeze, but I can't go back there. Even if I put all the goop on, mosquitoes are eating me alive. They're eating my wife and I alive. So we go back inside, stuck in our car, stuck at the mall. We're stuck. And then there's winter. It gets cold down here. You know, San Jose right now, this is December right now, it's you know, in the 50s. In Silicon Valley, it's you know, in the 70s. It's nice. And it's not as, and if we were in International Falls, I understand it's damn cold down there in International Falls, Minneapolis, Fargo. I have family in Fargo. It's super cold down there, but Texas is cold. For a person that's been spoiled living in Silicon Valley, it's cold. Hey, I admit it. So, racism. Racism is a big issue in Texas, okay? It's getting better. You know, all these monuments to Robert E. Lee and all the Confederate soldiers in the Confederacy are slowly but surely coming down. In Dallas, they're no longer going to have a Robert E. Lee school and all these Confederate soldiers that have been honored in the past. Their parks and their libraries, their schools are being renamed for the community typically. So if it's a certain name of a certain community, they just name it after the community, as long as it's not a Confederate soldier. So things are changing here in Texas, slowly but surely. But, you know, it's not a good idea to say you're from California to a Texan, because they sort of get mad. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos and they all complain, man, we hate California, we hate Californians, and we hate those liberals from California. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you hate us. We don't hate you. We are trying to understand you. Why do they hate us? Well, let me just give you something. I was watching this YouTube video. This guy just complained about California, but there was a subtext. He said he lived in East LA, but he didn't like the idea that there were so many Mexicans. He said these Mexicans were violent. These Mexicans were crazy. These Mexicans were driving their cars everywhere, and you know, blah, blah, blah about Mexicans. Almost sounds like, you know, Donald Trump, you know, complaining about the rapist Mexicans and all that stuff like that. You know, you go to the poorest of poorest neighborhoods to afford a house, it's going to get tough, like it or not. It's, if you want to, you know, it's tough. I understand. But, you know, there's ways around that, and there's other communities that you can live in California, where you can afford a house. You can buy a house in Bakersfield for the same price as Texas, Fresno, certain parts of Northern California, in the valley. I'm talking about the San Joaquin Valley. But once you get into the coast, it's going to get expensive because it is so nice. Let me talk about the 50-mile rule. That's a rule of mine. It's what you can do within 50 miles of your home. When I lived in Riverside, I can take the trolley and go to the beach. You know, I could be at the beach, or I can go to the mountains. There's actual mountains there, and there's actually skiing. So you can go to the skiing or go to the beach. You have options in Southern California. Same in Northern California. You can't go skiing in the Bay Area. You have to go all the way to Lake Tahoe for that. That takes a couple hours. But you can go to the beach. It takes about, 45 minutes to go to the beach. You can go to the mountains. The Santa Cruz Mountains and the Santa Cruz beaches are very, very nice. You can go shopping. Excellent shopping, excellent restaurants, excellent everything around the Bay Area. You can, in San Francisco, Los Gatos, San Jose, the list goes on and on and on. So, it's all about location, 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 like I said earlier. So this racist guy says, hey, I don't like all these Mexicans. Well, he moved to Texas. move to one of those suburbs, those new suburbs that have less Mexicans than, you know, there's certain neighborhoods in, you know, north of Dallas that you can buy a $200,000, $300,000 house, and, you know, it's very nice. It's away from the, you know, East LA or those kinds of neighborhoods. I understand that. You know, we all want our to live in peace, and if that brings you peace, I understand. But don't call Mexicans thieves, liars, and bad drivers, and crazy people, and rapists, and stuff like that, because we aren't. In all cultures, there are some bad apples. We all know that, okay? In all cultures. We aren't, and nobody is perfect. We understand also, don't we? I hope you understand that. So let's finally talk about taxes. People talk in Texas, they complain, oh my God, California has income taxes. Well, in California they do. These income taxes pay for a lot of the infrastructure, the high quality infrastructure in California. There's also a gas tax in California, an extra, I think it's about 60 to 70 cents approximately for gas. You have to pay that every time, every gallon that you buy in California. But California has excellent roads and bridges. In Texas, they have some good roads, but some of them aren't so good. One of the negative things I do not appreciate in Texas is that they don't have bridges over these areas. You know, there's drops, and then it comes back up, and that area gets flooded when it starts raining. So you're driving along, and I've done this, and there's flooding right there. If you kept on going, you would die. That's not a good idea. Why didn't they build a little bridge over it? I remember going to South Texas one year. I was coming from North Texas. I drove, it was flooded. Had to come back, drove, flooded. Come back, drove, flooded. Finally, I got on I-35 and finally got a road, a major road that wasn't flooded. All the other roads were flooded. I used to travel from Lockhart, Texas and Austin, Texas, going to Johnson City, going to work. Going down the road, it's flooded. I have to go all the way around, 50 miles around, so I can avoid the road, that flooded area. I didn't want to die. I'm not a very good swimmer, to be honest with you. So Texans should spend more money on infrastructure, but they aren't willing to pay the taxes. I guess, you know, it's their choice. I feel bad if some family member or friend of theirs succumbed to drowning in one of these, in an accident. And that happens every year during the rainy season. People die drowning in Texas. It happens less in California. So we have these taxes. We have, you buy a house in Texas. You pay a lot of taxes. You pay more taxes in Texas than you do in California. I bought a house in California that was more expensive than the one I'm currently living in Texas, but my taxes are more in Texas for housing. What can I say? In California, it's cheaper. They pay less property tax. So you're going to get screwed somewhere in the world of tax. Somebody has to pay the bills, and it's obviously going to be the homeowners paying higher taxes in Texas. And of course, we have, retail taxes too in Texas too. Just like California, nothing different. So that's my Texas versus California video. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm not shy. I'm not afraid to communicate with individuals with differing opinions. I come from a multicultural background. Okay? Even Latinos get stuck in issues about diversity. I was at a conference at University of Texas at Austin, and one professor from University of California, Santa Cruz, was giving a presentation saying, "Man, I missed Texas." I said, "Why do you miss Texas?" "Well, I'm tired of all the multiculturalism, essentially. It's too much diversity." She didn't say too much diversity, but she said, I just like being around more Latinos. And I said, I understand. Because in South Texas, that's where most of the Latinos live in Texas. It's it's somewhat segregated. There's certain neighborhoods for certain individuals, and it's historically been perpetuated. And so she didn't like the idea of multiculturalism. I embrace it because I grew up at school, San Jose High School, in the 60s. We had Asians, African Americans, white people, brown people, black people, all kinds of hues of human beings were there. Arab Americans were at my high school. I'm very proud of that high school. You know, the homecoming queen was an African American. My student body president was an African American. In the 60s, what were African Americans here in Texas? They were segregated. They were over there at school. And we sent them, and they couldn't come to our school at all. That's what they did in Texas. But in California, thank God, I grew up with a different experience. So Texas is slowly but surely becoming more progressive. I know a lot of Texans hate that idea. They say, hey, we hate you. They actually tell me, we hate you liberals. We hate you. You know, why don't you go back to California? Well, I'm here for another few years. My wife's working here. She got a job down here. And I said, oh, I guess I'll go back. And we're going to be here for another 5 years maybe. And then guess what? I'm headed back to California if I'm still alive. If I'm lucky enough to be alive, I'll be back in California. So thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Gracias. Adios. Bye-bye.